Yeah, nice. Hexagram 29. Share my screen. Grab my tab. Here we go. Bang, bang, bang. Hexagram 29. And for me today, I called in line number 5, line 5. And I'll do it at the end. So, the abyss, danger, the judgment. The abyss repeated. You are sincere. You have success in your heart, and whatever you do succeeds. The sage uses this hexagram to make us aware that the abyss is a false description of an aspect of the cosmic consciousness as a bottomless pit of utter darkness into which one can fall and become permanently lost. This image falsely associates the cosmic consciousness with what a person is afraid of, what he does not understand, or is unable to verify with his forebrain. The abyss is also a metaphor for the collective monumental fears a person has stored in his psyche, and as such, is the fearful aspect of the demonic sphere of consciousness created by the collective ego. In this regard, the hexagram is connected with the very real danger that the true self might fall into oblivion. The person may forget who he truly is. This is something that can actually happen if the ego completely takes over the personality. The abyss is also the fear of death of fear of death the person can experience. A fear created by the collective ego in its picturing the end of life in a body as loss. The sage makes us aware that loss, as a term, has no cosmic validity. And this is why the words in the judgment of hexagram 55, abundance, say, be not sad. Also see glossary, death, and loss. The main theme of this hexagram is the way fears operate in the psyche. The psyche, in I Ching terms, is the invisible aspect of a person's whole being. It refers to the person's total consciousness, including what is called the unconscious and subconscious. See glossary, psyche. Fears that enter the mind are stored throughout the body in the cells themselves. Some are located in the brain, some in the heart and other organs, while others are located in the muscles. Sometimes, in meditation, they show themselves in the areas where they are stored. Fears are stored in the body as feeling memories. These feelings are connected with the adrenaline that accompanied the experience that caused them. They are feelings, so to speak, that became congealed and which create a sense of alarm when any event similar to the original experience is encountered. While fears are of many sorts and have many causes, this hexagram addresses the primal fears of the psyche: fear of the unknown, death, punishment, abandonment, and of not having enough essential nourishment for one's whole being, whether that is actually food or chi energy. Primal fears compromise the source of all other fears. These primal fears have their origin in the inner experience of being separated from the cosmic whole, which happens when the access to one's inner truth gets blocked. This experience is what the I Ching means when it speaks of the loss of innocence, as described in hexagram 25, innocence. This hexagram shows what happens in the brain when the ego is the absolute ruler of the personality. The rational mind operates autonomously, thus excluding the midbrain and brainstem, which connects a person with his inner truth and with the cosmic consciousness. The false self confidence that accompanies the development of the ego represses his fears that are created by the collective ego's mistaken ideas about life and the nature of the cosmos into the subconscious. However, The self-confidence is only a thin mask covering them. During periods of crisis and shock, this self-confidence collapses, throwing the entire personality into doubt and dismay. It is in such situations that a person receives this hexagram, which is given to help him understand the dynamics of his situation and to return him to a place of inner safety. The counsel he is given begins with the statement, "If you are sincere, you have success in your heart, and whatever you do succeeds." Sincerity comes when a person recognizes that despite his greatest efforts, he cannot do alone what he needs to do to help himself. I'll say that again. Sincerity comes when a person recognizes that despite his greatest efforts, he cannot do alone what he needs to do to help himself. In this state, he calls out for help, not knowing where the help will come from. And this is the moment when the help comes. It comes from the sage that draws all the other helpers of the invisible world that the person needs at that time. In terms of consciousness, the trigram can, as described in part 1, stands for the role of thinking. Here, where the trigram is doubled, we are presented with a state of mind in which a person is trying to resolve a problem merely through thinking. This creates the danger of his getting lost in a maze of fears because he is trying to resolve through thinking a problem that has been created by thinking that has been divorced from feeling. I'll say that again. This creates the danger of his getting lost in a maze of fears because he is trying to resolve through thinking a problem that has been created by thinking that has been divorced from feeling. Spells connected with this hexagram have to do with a number of images projected onto the cosmic consciousness as unknowable, as an abyss into which one can fall and be lost forever, or a hell of eternal suffering. These images lock the person into an abyss of fears that prevent him from recognizing the caring and loving nature of the cosmos and from receiving its help and protection. They also prevent him from realizing that there is no cosmic abyss into which he can fall. The only abyss that exists is the demonic sphere of consciousness created by the erroneous ideas and beliefs of the collective ego. The lines. Repetition of the abysmal. In the abyss, one falls into the pit, misfortune. Line 1. Repetition of the abysmal refers to the fears that haunt a person's subconscious. By not resisting them, they gain extraordinary power, the meaning of falling into the pit in the abyss, leading him to act rashly, creating misfortune. Line 2. The abyss is dangerous. One should strive to attain small things only. The abyss is dangerous counsels a person not to act so long as he is being influenced by his fears. One should strive to attain small things only is saying to turn his attention inward to address and free himself from these fears before he does anything else. The fears which are stored in the psyche as words and images have dressed up in demonic forms such as shadowy figures or demons, dragons, and imps which have declared themselves to be invincible and to be a part of himself from which he cannot free himself. This line tells him that they are not part of him, but are intruders into his inner space. He needs to ask in meditation for the cosmic army to kill them. Once their demonic manifestations have been killed, their true nature as words and images become visible, and they can then be rejected through saying the inner no to them. The abyss is dangerous also refers to a mistaken idea about death as a final end of life. See glossary, death. Line 3, forward and backward. Abyss on abyss. In danger like this, pause at first and wait. Otherwise, you will fall into a pit in the abyss. Do not act this way. Do not act this way. Forward and backward refers to being buffeted between two fears, as in the expression, to be between a rock and a hard place. This indicates a person who sees only two alternatives in the given situation, and therefore fears he will be crushed no matter which he chooses. Because this view fails to recognize the existence of the invisible world and its helpers, he is left to his own devices, without help. Pause at first and wait is counsel for him to look for the help he needs from the sage and to address the problem in the inner realm where the only true and lasting solutions can be found. The line can also refer to a person who finds himself in a double bind created by two opposing standards of the collective ego, so that whichever way he moves, it is incorrect. An example is the modern woman who has been liberated from the old models of a woman's role in the world to follow a career. At the same time, she retains the ancient belief that to be a real woman, she must have had a child. These views set her into a continuous conflict mode, which makes her doubt herself, whichever path she chooses. Both models lead her away from recognizing that in and of herself she is adequate, without having to fulfill any pre-assigned role. This line also points to the poison arrow of guilt taken on by a person who believes in original fault. Such an idea plunges him into the abyss of self-conflict. The cosmic way out of this situation is to rid himself of the poison arrow of guilt. See Deprogramming Guilt. Pause at first and wait counsels a person to stop when in danger and find out the inner truth of the situation before acting. Line 4. A jug of wine, a bowl of rice with it. Earthen vessels simply handed in through the window. There is certainly no blame in this. Receiving this line informs a person that the sage is coming to help. The sage comes to help because the person has asked for help. Therefore, the gifts needed that truly nourish and aid him are given simply and without strings attached. The sage acts without blame. Line 5. The abyss is not filled to overflowing, it is filled only to the rim, no blame. This line draws attention to the rim that surrounds the abyss, as that element in the psyche that keeps the contents of the subconscious from overflowing its boundaries. The rim is thus the borderline that separates a person's subconscious from his conscious mind. When someone is addressing the problems in cooperation with the sage brings the person's fears from his subconscious to his conscious mind in the exact sequence that is best for him. The sage carefully watches over this borderline in such a way that the person is never overwhelmed. This line also points to someone who thinks that he can keep his fears under control through being reasonable, or by counterbalancing them with positive thinking, with positive imaging, or by sheer self-discipline. Attempts to counteract fears are not successful because they ignore their root causes. Success is achieved by rooting them out one by one under the guidance of the sage. C. Freeing yourself from fears. Line 6. Bound with cords and ropes, shut in between thorn-hedged prison walls. For 3 years, one does not find the way. Misfortune. This line is about the fear of suffering and the fear of death. Bound with cords and ropes refers to the fate that these fears create in that they project themselves into reality. The prison walls refer to the spells these fears put on various parts of the psyche. That the walls are described as thorn-hedged refer that the walls are described as thorn-hedged refers to their entangling quality as they affect all parts of the person's life. When he lives in fear of death, this fear transmits itself into every aspect of his life. Thus, he misses out on the fullness of life and its invigorating quality. If he sees this principle clearly, he will say the inner no to the seed phrase that perpetuates the fear of death. All things end in death. 3 years refers to the fact that spells are made up of a circular reference which leads the person around in circles. A circular reference is a false logical construction, the basic premise of which is a half-truth. A half-truth is a relative truth that has been converted into an absolute truth. The half-truth in this case is life is suffering. Suffering is not a natural part of life. It is what a person experiences when he has excluded the helpers in all that he does. The sage makes us aware that there are helpers available for every circumstance. They are activated by every sincere call for help. When the ego has caused the person to ignore the cornucopia of gifts the cosmos gives daily, the helpers no longer come, and the person suffers. The circular reference thus proves the premise on which it is based. All right. My reflections. So, line 6 is the one that stood out to me, and I might touch on line 5 and see where we go from there. So, line 6 in the fear of death. Now, I'm going to frame this through the context of the 5 personality patterns because that is body based, and this version of the I Ching is very body based, and doesn't have the full map of the body, which the ego shows up as armor in the body. So it's not just a thought process, a thought field; it's bodily armoring, where your body rigidifies as part of the ego, the story that it's told itself to survive. In that, being afraid of death is very much a leaving pattern phenomena. And to exist, they're afraid to exist. It's can I exist? So they're on these two stools of living and dying, or living and existing, or existing and death. And it really depends on the person how much they're willing to be here. I don't know, for me in the activations that I've helped people move through and move into and step into is terror. The terror that usually gets passed on to the child in childbirth, passed through the mother into the child, or the child experiences itself. Terror of childbirth. Or there can be another earlier childhood experience of terror. Sometimes it's an angry father who snaps and goes into a rage, a murderous rage, and the child feels it as a murderous rage. Like to the son or the daughter that experiences this terror, from the father's point of view, the child doesn't exist. The child is an obstacle to his security. The child is an obstacle to his safety. And same thing can come from the mother. The mother can be, usually it's a drunken mother or an addicted mother who is not aware of her feelings and just it neglects the child. And in that, because the child depends on the mother, there's a terror felt in the child that no one's coming. I'm in this world all alone. I can't feel my mum. My mum can't feel herself. Not that you consciously think this, but it's wired into the body. So you don't feel like you're welcome here. And if you don't feel like you're welcome here, then you will tend to lean into these half truths quite a bit, these circular references, because they bounce you between, oh, I'm safe, I'm unsafe, I'm safe, I'm unsafe, which is most likely what you experienced in childhood and definitely a cycle of the leaving pattern. Which is why they can really struggle in relationships. They're the ones that hold it together in relationships. All the chaos, they think that there's some pride in holding it all together, like the additional stress, way too much stress, more stress than what most people can handle. Their allostatic load, they don't feel it. So they end up, all their joints tend to break down, tend to stub their toes a lot because they're not aware of their body. I'll touch on line 5 here. Now, the body knows. Okay, it's very rare for someone to go into a psychotic break. I know the mainstream professional world is so afraid of people going into psychotic breaks that they don't push the edge, actually refuse to take people there. So they'll back off. They go, oh, you need to see a psychiatrist. Oh, I'm not going to do that. So in that pulling back of them because they're afraid of losing their credentials, losing their license, again, another construct of the collective ego, is that they don't act, people come to them for healing and guidance, but they can't actually take them where they need to go. Right? Same thing with plant medicines. The plant can take you to the edge. Sometimes it can take you over the edge. But then once you've left the power of the medicine, if you don't integrate it into real world actions, then you're just left there with two pieces of the puzzle, trying to slam them together, but not realizing that you're actually trying to assemble them incorrectly. This is what I hear in line 5. I also hear that the part of being reasonable, and this is the one that was given to me today, or shared with me today, when I did the RTCM, and I recommend doing the RTCM so you get the lines that relate to what you're going through. Otherwise, you can listen to a line and you can apply it to the past, but it might not be relevant to you right now. Like maybe you just need to listen to line 2 or line 2 and 6 or line 3 and 4, or sometimes you'll get a hexagram with no lines, and then the hexagram will tell you if you got this with no lines. So there's a wisdom in this. What do you want to call it? It's not really a book. I mean, it's in book form, and it's something else. Doubling back here. So the sage is letting me know that he's watching me, and he's mindful of the part of me that's afraid to go into the deep end, that I'm there, he's there, he gets it, right? And by me always doing the shadow work on my own, which is what I've done for most of my life, I need to figure this out on my own. I need to figure out the root. I need to figure out what this thing is, what the seed phrase is, whatever it is, the shadows that I'm hunting in the dark. Is that the sage is with me, in particular the helper of transformation, which really helps me undoing what I can't see, and it shows up in mind flashes, and I'm like, oh, that's the thing. And if you followed me for a while, you might hear the transformation in my voice. So I'm not the same John that I was when I first started reading this book. Something shifted. In cooperation with everyone else that functions as helpers through the sage, as function as helpers of the invisible world through them, because helpers operate through people. Right? It's not just they do function at the element of the level of the atom. They also function at the level of the person. It's my understanding is that they work through people, and it still requires your body to filter that out. Sometimes you need to ask someone for advice, and they give you the advice that you get through the person is the helper, because you don't believe that this thing can come through the spirit world. Particularly doubling back to the leaving pattern, and I'm going a bit of a tangent here. I'll take a deep breath. Is that the leaving pattern within a person can get a lot of channels and a lot of downloads and a lot of ideas. And that can come from the collective ego. It can come from the collective ego. Who are you channeling? Where is the source? Where are you getting it from? Right? And in that, the information that you get, you can feel compelled to act upon it straight away. Right? And you believe it's you, not you. Not you. Well, it is and it isn't you. But you've hardwired your body to receive this information and act or tell someone or do something. You need to check with the sage or say the inner no to it, or big check within yourself. Is this really for me? Do I need to act on this right now? And you'll get your answer. But the answer comes in clarity. And for the leaving pattern, they need to be still, feet on the ground, felt sense of their body, breathe, and connect to their body. Like I recommend people who have the leaving pattern, go swim. Swim, feel the water. Water asks nothing from you. Make sure you can swim. Nature's great as well. Make sure you're not pushing yourself away from nature. Actually feel nature encompassing you. There's two types. You can leave in nature by disappearing into the fantasy world of nature, and then there's the other version, which is no, I'm in nature. I'm in it. I am part of it. I'm not disappearing. What else do I want to speak to here? The woman piece, the liberated woman I see here, the double bind of these two opposing standards. And I see this in my work with women who are hyper independent. They've done the business thing. Sometimes they've had kids, sometimes they haven't. But either way, they're still stuck in this double bind, and their biology as well. Their biology wants something, whatever their version of true love is. Their body wants something, but they keep on calling in the incorrect partners because inside of them there's a double bind. So if there's a double bind in you and you don't know what your truth is, you'll invite partners into your life who also have a double bind. Do I want to be a successful businessman, or do I want to be a father? Do I want to love this woman, or do I want to go polyamorous, or whatever it is, right? Do I feel that this woman can fulfill my sexual needs, or do I still need to keep watching porn, right? There's a double bind there. And to move through the double bind, you can invite the sage, invite the helpers behind the veil of the invisible world to aid with you in that, and or you can just trust that the people are already in your life and they're already showing you the way. Line 3, forward and backward. Abyss upon abyss. No. Line 2, the abyss is dangerous. Yeah, cool. This is what's coming through. The unknown. All right. The unknown. We said, you got to step into the unknown, right? And the unknown has got this label of a pejorative, like the abyss, a pejorative meaning that within the word it's negative. So if you call someone, sexist, for example, that's a pejorative, right? You can use it as a pejorative, or you can use it as a noun. That's sexist, or you're sexist. Right. So there's a pejorative means you've angled, you've tainted the word, you've given the word a negative bias. Right. So the abyss, the unknown, the void, all of these places get given a pejorative name when in reality they're part of the cosmic harmony. They're part of reality. And once you realize that the abyss is safe, the void is safe, the unknown is safe, again, a leaving pattern, they're afraid of that. So they don't actually embody who they are, but they love teasing going to the edge of the void. They'll try and self-annihilate, which is a leaving pattern thing. Is self-annihilation is a common pattern with the leaving pattern. The leaving pattern is really good at identifying a bunch of red flags, but then just thinking their way through them. So in that, your body is telling you to do a thing or not to do a thing, and you ignore it because you've lost your common senses, because you're not embodied in them. The leaving pattern is not embodied in their common senses. Their mind is their faculty for navigating life, which can make them quite confused and unsure about life, which makes the unknown very unsafe for them. So they need to hear instructions. They need to hear structure. They need to hear, this is how we're going to do things, because once their mind treads first, and this is what I see is in this hexagram, is that if you've always allowed your mind to tread first, you will stay in the loop of the collective ego. If you allow your mind to tread first, you will stay in the loop of the collective ego. And I'm separating mind purely as a vernacular, as a bridging term to communicate what I'm saying, but there is no mind. There is either alignment with cosmic harmony or you're not aligned with cosmic harmony. The mind, body, spirit, all those separate faculties, I'm just using as a bridge between worlds, because that's where a lot of people are at right now. I need to say the mind because that's what's there. In the I Ching, it speaks to psyche. There is no soul, there is psyche, because it's your thought process. It's how you think, and your thinking is made up of your past, both epigenetically and your life experience, which also is held in your body, which is when I cross over the 5 personality patterns, is that all of these things are held in the body, not just in mind. And with that, thank you for listening. I've put this on a playlist with a whole bunch of others. If you want a link to the playlist, or if you already got a link to the playlist, find me on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll send you the playlist link directly. That's what I have for you. Mad love. Hope you enjoyed yourselves.